will jump into our intro and recap. We are here for Across the Atlantic, Session 7, overall Session 34 of the Call of Cthulhu that we have been playing. To give us a recap, it was Tuesday, February 6th, 1923. This was the day of departure for the boat. The SS President Van Buren heading to London, England, via Plymouth. Plymouth, I think. Doesn't really matter. Via a port before London. The manifest for the boat was obtained. However, the blueprints are not easily obtained and did not make it to the boat in time for you. You guys have since then navigated that by finding the actual official blueprints upon the boat and making a copy. Mr. Wright had a strange experience with the artifact as it was being loaded onto the boat, where time briefly stopped, and he had a little bit of a somewhat out-of-body experience, or I guess time dilation experience. One of the porters made off with one of the trunks suddenly. Nora chased him down and shot him. The captain met with what?
As she do.
As she do. The captain met with the main group and introduced himself, and the dog is barking at us from the top of the stairs because she is angry that I am talking and she is not down here. Sorry. The captain met you and introduced himself. He knows a bit about the mission and promises his aid. You pushed a psychology roll to gauge his intentions, and it went poorly. So we have yet to see what the results of that are, but obviously they are not good. Wright is escorted to his room and goes to take a nap. Mr. Wright and Miss Baker drop off one of the cases. Wright? Watts.
Right.
No, yeah, Wright, sorry. And then Watts and Baker. No, I'm swapping the two different ones around.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying.
It was right.
Yes.
Yes.
Right is right.
I don't know. I have this terrible habit of just saying the wrong W's in different places in my notes where, like, I know what I meant.
If it wasn't them, it'd be the Bradys.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, case dropped off with Mr. Barnes, the purser. The journalist Horatio Hughes speaks with Mr. Wright as he's investigating a cult called the Crawling Chaos, involved in a series of mysterious disappearances in New York. He heard that they were targeting Wright and his companions. Wright can meet Hughes again each morning in the in the steerage dining hall. The ship departs. Mr. Watts has another strange dream, this time of a wide-open plain with sharp grasses. Stampede charges towards him. Watts awakes and soon realizes he is not on a train after all. He proceeds to rampage across the boat, hoping to turn it back to the port. The captain refuses to turn around the boat. With some effort, he is mollified for the time being and returns to his cabin. He and Wright discuss the egg and strange experiences around the artifact. Everyone but Baker goes to dinner with the captain. The captain introduces Mrs. Hastings and her lady-in-waiting, Miss Green. Talks about the Cathat Aquadigan with Mr. Watts and Mr. Brady, talking about it as the Book of the Deep Ones. At some prompting from Mr. Watts, Mrs. Hastings shows interest in having some help with studying the book and attempting to cast the spell that is locked within. The captain is unimpressed with this suggestion and warns against it. Mrs. Hastings is due to be sunning herself on the upper deck the following day. As pointed out, sunning herself is really mostly just being like wrapped up in her coat because it's pretty damn cold. It is January in the Northern Atlantic. Mrs. Hastings also mentions that she knows of mentions of Dagon and Hydra in the book, some kind of beings that are worshipped by the children of the sea. Mr. Draper, Wright, and Brady discuss a few things. Brady assures Draper that despite his current excitability, Watts is not such a bad guy. And whether Draper particularly believes that is up to Mr. Draper. Because Watts, he's been a bit of a loose cannon. Miss Baker smokes in her room, fending off some curious children who peer in. Draper picks the lock to Watts' door so that Brady can get in. Baker holds on to the artifact, refusing to open the door. The door locks are flimsy at best, and Draper rigs up a jamming mechanism to better secure it before bed. There was a luck roll on Mr. Watts in terms of studying the Children of the Deep. He passed. We will have to come back to that when he is back. I have a whole bunch of notes that we're probably going to take up like 20 minutes of this game, and we're going to do that next time. There is a commotion outside in the night. Mr. Watts wakes from another strange dream and brings back a beaker somehow. Doesn't remember specifically what happened in the dream as the dream fades. Gives Brady the egg to see if it'll make him have the same strange dreams. Not sure what is inside the beaker. Nora wakes due to the commotion, overhears some of what happened outside, but doesn't really make out all that much. Draper and Wright sleep through the entire ordeal. Nobody goes to investigate. So who knows what happened? Maybe you can find out today. You awake to Wednesday, February 7th, 1923. It is a clear day with a few wispy clouds flying over the boat. Cold outside, obviously, thanks to the winds on the northern Atlantic. But otherwise, steady seas and calm currents. Vaguely at odds with the fact that obviously some people are seasick, but of course not everybody has traveled on boats before, and at this moment in time, you all seem fine. Brady awoke to remembering having no strange dreams. Brady and Watts feel a little headachy, though, from the fumes from the open flask. The container is transferred into something that is a little bit more secure, and they have yet to identify what exactly is in it. They head to breakfast. Note some people are seasick and ran into a particularly excited person exiting one of the neighboring cabins. And you head to breakfast and you have a chat about the things that are going on and times ahead. Draper goes to the captain to get the map of the boat. Overhears some of the updates from the night that are going to the captain. Some regarding the disturbances. Watts manages to get in to see Nora. They go to the edge of the deck, and Watts has a poor sanity roll when confronted by the actual open water. Draper comes back from the deck nonchalantly in the hall. He is hanging out to see who comes back to their rooms from breakfast. And finally, Mr. Brady and Mr. Wright go to the lower deck to meet with Hughes. We will take a very brief moment for Emily to see why the pup is losing her shit upstairs, and then we'll kick it off. Is there anything else you guys want to cover in terms of background and recap?
That's pretty comprehensive.
I'm getting better at my notes. She is being rather sassy upstairs. I think she's just annoyed that she can hear me talking, and it's just like, "What are you guys doing?" Because I walked her upstairs. I guess I'm going to let her down. I guess we can jump into Mr. Draper first. Is there anything in particular you are doing or looking for as far as when you are watching, or just generically, like, what do you see as you hang out in the hall minding your own business?
I'm just trying to identify, like, who's around us, who's in the rooms around us, specifically looking out for the people that I recognize, and I believe there was another description that Mr. Wright gave us of a third individual, of the woman I think he told us about. So just any of those three people. And then generally just who is.
All right, well, you should see something pop on your screen right now. Draper's map of the boat. So you spend the latter part of the morning watching people coming and going from their rooms. You see a variety of people, none of which are specifically particularly suspicious. But, you know, take that as it may. To some extent, you would be suspicious of anybody on the boat. You take some notes on the rooms and see certain people that certain people go to, while clearly tilting towards the upper crust of society. In the first class accommodations, you see quite a variety of people beyond that. Single individuals who you do not see in the company of others, younger couples, families with children, and some multi-generational families with grandparents, parents, and children are all meeting the crossing. You'll see that I've marked on here the notes that you would have taken. In the very first room at the end of the hall next to the barber shop, there is a young couple. You do not see anybody go into the following room. The next room down is Watts and Brady's. After that, you have Draper and Wright's room. Baker is in the room following that. A tall, thin fellow who is dressed rather severely is in the room next to Baker. You do not see anybody go into the following room. A tall, thin woman who looks classically beautiful, I would say. Very sharp features is in the room after that. The next room, once again, you don't see anybody during your time there enter or exit the room. There is a family, mother, father with 2 children in that room after that. And then a amicable and friendly-looking older couple, gray-haired, clearly in their latter years, are in the room after that. The guy that you ran into who was sick was coming from across the hall and to the other side of the ship that morning, and I marked that room as well.
Okay, so 3 rooms I don't know, and then the other people I don't recognize.
That's right. Yeah. So, basically, none of them are particularly they're not obviously the people that you were accosted by. Jesus, Brie. I don't know if you guys heard that, but the noises. I'm not sure. I will note also. I did some very, very basic MS Paint ad hoc adjusting of the second level down for the steerage that I've noted on here. Also, from my understanding of looking at the pictures of the boat and this plan, there's actually 2 levels of cabins, and this is only showing one of them on the top level. So there would be another level of cabins that is sitting above yours for the first class.
It even looks like it has stairs that would go up a level.
Yeah, it does kind of in the center there. Yeah. There's an entry, and then it's going up like that. And then because if we flip over to if you look at this, there's clearly 2 levels there, plus a level below that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we are off to the day. As I mentioned, there are some interesting people that you see. If any of those descriptions sounds particularly interesting, let me know if you want to, I don't know, accost them.
No. Would I have overheard any of their conversations? I mean, I doubt they would just be just saying some random, oh, we're looking out for so-and-so or whatever, but anything suspicious from just trying to overhear conversations?
Not particularly. In terms of the people who were having the conversations, the young couple seem to be off on their way to visit family. The family who have a discussion as they go by are largely talking to their children. And the elderly couple are simply having idle banter. Obviously, the single individuals, you don't know whether they are actually single. It may well be that they are a couple or a family who only one of them happened to be going back to their cabin at that time. So you can't take at face value necessarily that these are individually occupied rooms.
Okay. And so during this time, Watts and Baker were having the conversation at the outside, watching at the water?
Yes, this would be at the same time as Watson Baker having the conversation outside by the water. So depending on your exact timing coming back, you may have run into them leaving, but would likely have run into them returning.
Okay. I'll just kind of nod as they return.
Yeah, was there anything that you would have said to Draper or checked in about?
Have you been watching in the hall long? I had to step out for a moment, but the door was locked.
Yeah, I've been here for a little bit. I'm just trying to get a sense of who's around us. No one tried to do anything while you you were away.
Excellent. Perhaps we should get the group together at some point and discuss if we should move the box, but I don't plan on being too social aboard the ship with the other passengers, so it may be convenient to leave it in my rooms for the time being.
Yeah, we can see what everyone else thinks.
Give a nod and glance towards their doors.
There's a lady.
Are they in their rooms, do you know, or they've gone off to deal with other business?
The other two? You're asking about Wright and...
Brady and Wright, I guess, since Watts would in theory be with me.
I don't think I would actually know. Because... I went and spoke with the captain and then came back here. I haven't seen them since breakfast. I think they mentioned something about somebody that they met on the boat, talking to somebody in steerage.
Ah, perhaps it was that strange fellow that approached Mr. Wright. Well, we can all stand around here, I suppose, and wait for them, but that may become slightly awkward.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people. There's a couple rooms that I haven't seen anyone come in or out of yet, but we seem to be okay where we are, at least with the people around us.
Very well. Nora will take out a cigarette and light it, sort of lean casually against the wall so she looks as nonchalant as possible, and continue to keep an eye out, waiting for the rest of our companions to return. I don't know if we want to say that Watts was just here the whole time.
Yeah, I guess we'll say maybe Watts hung out with you guys for a little bit and then maybe was feeling a bit seasick and headed back to his cabin for a rest, considering his aversion to being at sea.
Makes sense. Nora had given him a bunch of alcohol, so maybe he just went to go drink it off and sleep.
Kill the fly. All right, great. Well, before we jump into Brady and what the fuck? Before we jump into Brady and Wright, is there anything you guys are doing? Any of you? Very immediately. Like I think we more or less covered it, but I assume Brady and Wright. Are you just heading down to Mr. Hughes?
I think so.
Yeah.
So it is, as I said, mid-morning. The breakfast rush has ended, and you descend down to steerage class. Obviously, as upper class passengers, there's no reason that you're not permitted down there. Whereas, obviously, the reverse is generally frowned upon, albeit not completely prevented. And you find yourself on what is a teeming lower deck. There are quite a few passengers that are crammed in here, as you can see in the example of one of these rooms where you have these, 6 people to a room rather than 2 that are jammed into a single room. So the relatively deserted dining hall remains still quite busy, in relative speaking, comparison. As you descend down to the lower decks, there are children running around and people milling about, smoking and taking in the sights of the sea. You see a handful of people out on the outer decks who are leaning over the railings, looking rather queasy. And you are able to make your way over to the dining hall. Is there anything you're doing besides looking for Mr. Hughes as you enter?
Also be keeping an eye out for Flinders and especially the 3 individuals that we have descriptions so far.
So you descend. I guess give me a spot hidden.
I was also gonna do the same on the last 3.
You can both give me a spot
I'm cursed.
Mr. Brady, it is pretty busy down here with your regular success. You do briefly see somebody who looks like they might be one of the people that you have had described to you or familiar with. But they are across the deck outside and not in the general direction that you are going. So it is not unexpected to catch sight of them, but you don't see them particularly doing anything in particular. Obviously, Mr. Wright, with the failure, you do not see any of them.
Kind of gross down here.
It is there is even one day out at sea there is a rising stench of humanity that pervades much of the area down here. There's no realistic way to keep it quite as clean as the upper levels. It is not exactly a full-on stink at this point, but obviously this is the result of close quarters with too many people. That being said, you enter the dining hall. The dining hall itself is kept fairly clean compared to the various quarters and public areas. As you look across, you see Mr. Hughes sitting by himself, smoking a cigarette and reading a small, cheap paperback book.
Fine day for a walk. I say as we approach.
Shit. Paperbacks were invented in 1935.
I saw him Google something and I was like, he's looking up titles or checking?
So it's not a paperback book. He has a small, cheap hardcover book. Sorry. I suppose maybe he has like a magazine or something. Anyway, I'm sorry. Historical aside. You see him across the hall, and he sees you as you enter, looking out from his book, expecting your potential arrival. He pulls a cigarette from his lips, holding it in his hand, and gives you a wave, beckoning you forward.
Stop.
Are there a lot of people in here?
There are like several dozen, which is clearly not nearly the full capacity of the dining hall, but there's a spattering of people throughout it at these various benches.
Guess if he's waving, just approach.
As you approach, he says, Mr. Wright, and who is this here, this your friend that you brought down with you?
Benjamin Brady, sir. And I'll just extend my hand out to shake it.
He stands up, taking off his cap briefly, putting his cigarette down on the table, and says, Mr. Brady, it's a pleasure.
He's a friend, very reliable. Have you gotten any air today?
Well, I do have some things to impart. Maybe we should take a stroll out on the deck?
My thoughts, exactly.
Then follow close. The air in here is, also a bit close.
Yeah, I light a cigarette before we leave the mess hall to help out with the smell on the way out.
There's definitely an intermingling of cheap tobacco, food, and the unwashed masses of humanity that pervade the lower spaces. Not helped by the fact that, of course, the lower levels do not have nearly as good airflow. Mr. Hughes makes his exit out onto the outer deck and walks over to a open spot on the railing, leaning out and looking out across the sea.
So what brings the New York Tribune to the Isles?
Well, as I said, the people of interest that I've been looking into. They seem to be a nefarious lot, and not your typical thugs and ne'er do wells that we see in the Big Old Apple. Unfortunately, they have managed to embroil themselves in some unusual doings, and have been accused or at least suspected of several unusual disappearances. People of all walks of life, mind you, generally of the lower classes, so that doesn't really rise to the interest of the police. They don't care too much when one Irishman or another goes missing. But that being said, it certainly is something of interest to the papers. And if I can figure out what exactly they're doing with these missing people as well, that will be a story worth telling.
So this group's quite active in the old world then.
It seems to be that they are a relatively new import, at least as far as my telling. I mean, they may well have been in New England longer. There is untold stories long buried in the colonies, as they say. But that said, what connections I have found are going back chiefly, well, to the Mediterranean, talking about Constantinople and the Aegean, across the Mediterranean to Greece and Egypt.
Interesting. Well, my investigation hasn't been on an official capacity. It's been focused on their activities here on uh, the Northeast.
Well, as wealth is accumulated in America, that's no surprise that so has interest in the cult and the valuable artifacts that go hand in hand. Whether there's any truth to be said to the magics and legends that surround it, that's not something I particularly know about. But the crime, that is my interest. And I certainly would like to expose them for the dirty dealings that they foment.
Well, if you were to find purchase in their crimes, you'll need to know their motivations, and they seem largely motivated by these esoteric items of rarity.
Indeed, tell me, is there some reason that they're particularly interested in you? It's fascinating that that one specific group was identified to be tailed. Their principal interest seems to be artifacts.
Well, we have or I have been investigating them. I imagine that'd be their first that would be my first thought for why our names came up. You say that they've named myself and my compatriots.
Give me a fast talk or it's not like a deception roll. No, it's not really fast talk.
I can spin it. I do genuinely believe we're on the radar from my investigation. He is kind of he's a little bit self-important.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a persuasion or a fast talk. I mean, you're a little bit fast talking him by doing the like change of topic. And that's not to say that what you're saying is like he's gonna like absolutely see through you, as to just whether simply you raise suspicions.
I definitely should have invested more points in oh yeah, that's not bad.
So, all right, well, that's a neutral outcome. He has no strong opinion one way or the other. Jesus, Brie, would you stop? She's throwing a tantrum. She's like, pay attention to me. I'm a dog. Look at me. Sorry. So he studies you for a moment and says, like, well, that may be the reason that they're interested in you. But it is sure curious that they've taken the effort to follow you here. With that said, I do have some news to impart from this morning. If you listen closely, I would not want to have this fall on prying ears. And assuming that you, lean in, and Mr. Brady as well from the other side.
I'll give him a quick look over. He doesn't look like he's about to shank me, does he?
So you don't need to give a roll. He does not seem like he's about to shank you. He doesn't seem like the shanking type. He is a diminutive, fire-headed man who seems like he is not particularly interested in physical altercations.
Okay. All right.
He says,
those are the sneaky ones.
That's why you don't need to do a roll. You can't see it coming. So as you lean over, he says, well, I was taking a look at our companions here down in the steerage deck as we arrived for breakfast this morning. I got up quite early and kept an eye on all those coming in and what they were doing as I took my time about my breakfast. And, well, there were two men that I would say are quite suspicious that are staying down here in the lower classes. One of them, well, he was a tall man, clean-shaven, curly black hair, darkly tan complexion. Maybe Greek, Egyptian, somewhere around the southern Mediterranean. It's hard to say that exactly where he hails from. Looked like he could handle himself in a fight, though. The other, good-looking fellow, fair complexion, clean-shaven, close-cropped dark hair, probably in his early 20s. He seemed to get progressively more excited as they were discussing.
Were they speaking in a different language? Could you make out any of that information from them?
You have to understand, the breakfast rush down here in the steerage deck, it's a madhouse. People, as far as the eye can see, were chock-a-block, packed in like sardines, as it were. It's truly a merciful thing that I'm doing, putting myself through this for you. And I can say that it's very difficult to make out even the conversation from the person right next to you. That being said, Mr. Hughes here, he does have a few tricks up his sleeve. He managed to sidle in close to these two fellows. Did listen very closely. Overheard just a few snippets, mind you. And he said, from those snippets, I did manage to catch just one or two specific things. They seemed very interested in the cargo bay. They said there was something about something stored down there. I don't know whether it's something that they are carrying themselves or something that they seek to obtain. But that seems to be what the other man was getting so excited about.
A quick point of note. I have both of the descriptions for the two people we have so far. One's 5'4" and pale, and then the other with a Mediterranean complexion. I have short and heavy. Was that the two that we found on the train?
Mind you, this fellow you're talking to is very short.
Okay.
So a tall fellow compared to him could be a short fellow compared to somebody else.
All right. That is quite interesting, and it lines up with, at least partially with some of the individuals we were watching out for. I'll be interested to swap notes on individuals that both of us have linked to this organization.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do so. So is it true that you've run into one or more of these fellows already?
I have. I ran into them in Arkham first, accidentally, and that's how they got onto my radar. I was following them up as a potential story, and that's uh, how I think we keep having run-ins.
Well, it seems like from their perspective, they're no longer the story. It's you that is the story, my dear boy. And he gives you a wink.
This does happen to occasion to individuals of our profession. You dig a little too deep.
Ah, true. A tale as old as time. Digging up the best stories. Well, that's a dangerous profession indeed. I've had a few near scrapes myself. But you, Mr. Brady, are you a member of the press as well? I haven't heard your name.
No, I'm not a member of the press. I'm a retired professor. But here lately, I've just been kind of volunteering my time and efforts, you could say,
Ah,
to help some friends.
a man of letters, then. Well educated. It's quite good of you to provide your time. I'm sure you're a man of many interests.
That's they seemed involved with some scandal in the college in Arkham. I that's how I came to meet Benjamin here.
Ah, Miskatonic University. It is a well-esteemed institution going back many a year. If you've worked with them, then clearly they trust you with some important matters. It's said that their archives run deep, and that the most valuable of information is down in the very basement of that particular location. Maybe that has something to do with the interest of this group.
As a former graduate, I had some ties to the dean, Mr. Fallon, and that's how we got roped into it. Do you have what information do you have on their ties to the old country? If do you have any idea whether they started there and then imported into our continent, or was it the other way around? They seem quite established in the Northeast.
Well, you have to mind that what information I've gleaned is it's secondhand at best, but I do have some insights that I think are at least trustworthy to say the least. I would say that they are clearly an import to this continent. That their roots run deep indeed. That they go back centuries before this place was colonized properly. That likely their head of the head of their organization hails from Istanbul, Turkey, mind you, as otherwise known as Constantinople in the old days. That would be their seat of power, where the orders flow from. Who exactly that is and what the nature of the senior positions in the organization are is closely guarded secrets. Secret, however. The closest that I've gotten is talking to lackeys of lackeys, many times removed from the true reasons that they do what they do.
They seemed quite elusive, and finding direct names was near impossible. But if you have some descriptions of individuals you've come across, it would be helpful. And in the very least, you could prevent my associates and I from perhaps even coming to harm if half of what I've gleaned on this organization are true.
I'll do what I can, but at this point in time, there's only the two of them that have seen upon this vessel. I would say that they tend towards being, the more swarthy Mediterranean types, but they recruit from all races and classes. They're not likely to discriminate. If you worship whatever strange gods they pledge themselves to, whatever strange things that they seek to accomplish, then they're happy to take you into their fold. As far as I can tell, though, you have to do some extreme things to be able to prove yourself worthy of their trust. And even if you do so, that trust only goes so far until you manage to make your way into the upper ranks. The people that find themselves in the Americas, they do not represent the cream of the crop, but there are a few that are important individuals. Whether those have made their way onto this boat, well, they are not people that I have seen, but there is one woman that I have heard of in my contacts back in New York. I do not know whether she has deemed it important enough for her to be here, but she would be the one that is truly dangerous. At least the whispers that I have heard indicate that she is one with real power, not simply a thug that's out there to use his physical prowess to be able to push for the things that they seek to obtain.
Can I glean from watched throughout this conversation just how forthcoming he's being? Like if it seems like he's strategically holding stuff back for trade, that kind of thing.
Believe it.
Give me a psychology roll. I would say that comes out relatively neutral in terms of his skill set, in the sense that he is being relatively forthcoming, but he is somebody that will probably never in his life be fully truthful with a person if he has something to gain.
You mentioned gods. What makes you believe that their organization is believes in paganism or I leave him open to correct me.
He says, you mean the occult? Well, whatever it is that they believe in, it is something that no regular person is likely to be going to Sunday Mass for. Let's just leave it at that. I have had a few run-ins in my infiltration of their organization. Not to the point where I've been forced to take on the dark rites and more of passage that are required to truly infiltrate to the deepest levels. It seems that many of their followers, at least in the New World, are motivated by profit first and not too concerned with the exact specifics of the ends that they seek.
We've been very forthcoming so far. I suppose you could use a little information. I can confirm that the two individuals that you found below deck are members of the crawling chaos, both from previous encounters and from my investigation. And I'll swap the descriptions I have. The scruffy, pale fellow, last seen with the beard, but pale, about 5'4", darting eyes, that kind of thing. And then the other fellow, I'll ask if he had fashionable European wear. Was rotund.
He says, yes, I suppose you could describe him that way. He may be heavy set by the views of the average person, but mark my words, That's not all fat there. That man has muscle beneath that flabby exterior. I wouldn't want to get into a fight with him.
Do you know of any other individuals to watch out for in the Northeast?
Well, in terms of the people that I've run into, it's part of the crawling chaos. There is one fellow who disguises himself as a man of the cloth, a clergyman. I've never run into him myself personally, but he is placed within the diocese in New York, apparently fairly high. It seems that getting access to the relics and various antiquities that are kept by the church. Jesus Christ, Bree, stop it! Oh my God, this dog. I don't know if you can hear that. She is just like, we have like mats for like the chairs to not mess up the floor, and she's just sitting there, just like ravaging the thing with her claws. Sorry, that was very distracting. There is also a handful of different low-level thugs that I've run into in my dealings with them. These come from all walks of life. There's an Irishman, of course, and then there's a few more people from Mediterranean descent. I have a hard time pinning down exactly what country or nationality they come from, but that they definitely have darker skin and from the harsh Mediterranean sun. There's also, as I mentioned, obviously the woman that is their leader within the New York chapter, but she I have never seen nor heard described. Besides the fact that she is a stern mistress that does not brook any kind of disagreement. Beyond that, well, I suppose probably in this case you'd be looking for other thugs that would be trying to push their power upon unsuspecting fellows that they need to convince to do their bidding.
What would it be worth to have a little more description of this woman in a position of power in this New York chapter?
Now you're talking my language. I might be able to squeeze that out of the fellows that we've seen down here below decks. Mind you, Horatio here, he has tricks up his sleeve, but they do not come cheaply. It is difficult to do these things, and it is a specialty of mine to be able to extract information. This information, of course, valuable to the papers and valuable to other people who would find interest in such matters. If you could, say, grease my palm with, say, a few dollars here and there, potentially some information, a little combination of the two, I might be able to find out more for you.
Without hesitating, Benjamin will just pull out he'll pull out $5 and hand him $5.
He says, "Bless you! That's a good start, I'm sure. If you come back with more of the same tomorrow, I might have something to tell you."
I was trying to think of the name of the person in the last campaign. I'd stole a small pocketbook out of a man's coat pocket, and I was trying to figure out I can't find my notes for that
Oh, I've never made that connection before.
because he was Arabic, because all the text in the pocketbook was Arabic, and I could not remember. I'm trying to find it. I could not
So,
remember
is
the name.
having back somewhere around session 15 that you snatched a notebook written in Arabic. In session 16, you later know about the Black Book. And then where's I have it here somewhere.
I already archived my notes from season 1.
Translating the book largely contains brief, obscure notes associated with names and dates. The names are all generic, but locations clearly indicated that the person has traveled extensively. Starting about a year ago, it catalogs meetings starting in Tehran and goes from there to Jerusalem, Cairo, Alexandria, Athens, Rome, Bern, back to Rome, Berlin, Paris, Madrid, London, Exeter, back to London, Manchester, Kingston, Jamaica, Miami, New Orleans, Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, and finally Arkham. There are names that the translator cannot translate. He is unfamiliar with them.
Okay. So there was no name given of the... Nothing that would yield, like, common sense that this is this person's pocketbook or...
No, it is not like it has somebody's like name and address written in the front cover. It clearly was deliberately obfuscated to prevent leaking of information. That whoever had annotated it in this book had been concerned that if somebody found it, they would be able to glean too much information if it was written within.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah, internally this whole time he had been kind of thinking back to previous thoughts of the run-ins with these people and trying to maybe associate maybe that particular connection, that book, that person.
The person was somebody named Jenkins, who was entertaining
Jenkins.
guests from somewhere overseas.
Okay.
You got no information on the specific guests, and whether this black book was Jenkins' book or was a book that was entrusted to him by said guests, you do not know.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So you bribed Hughes to get you more information on the woman. Do you have further follow-ups or questions?
I did like 10 seconds ago. Got distracted by Jenkins.
Jenkins!
Leroy.
Oh, there's a additional fellow you might find useful in a way. There's, and I describe Flinders. If you find yourself in a pinch, he's been helpful for us in the past. He's not entirely rational, but his heart's in a good place. And should you find yourself cornered by these Nephris individuals, I would put some trust in him.
The squirrely young lad. Why, he's been making a fool of himself down here.
Kind of grimace at that. Is it the mole people again?
The mole people and much more, mind you. He has all sorts of tall tales that make virtually no sense whatsoever.
Kind of tilt my head. What new stories has he added?
Why, tales of massive sharks. He says that we're due to be attacked as we cross the ocean by a shark more than 70 feet long. Says it's been around since the Jurassic period. It's some kind of dinosaur. Mind you, dinosaurs, all the rage these days. Seems like scientists are coming up with new ones every moment. The anthropologists, they're out of control. I don't really put much stock in it, mind you. It's really, how much can you glean from some random old bones? But this fellow, well, yes, he seems to like to talk about all these things very much to anybody that will listen to him.
Yeah. Well, best of luck. We'll meet tomorrow morning as well. Thank
Who
you
would be
for
afraid of sharks? They never attack people. It's ridiculous.
thank you for all this new information. You've given us a lot to think about. And of course, if there's any more information you need as well, we're not entirely without uh, without our skills.
Much appreciated. I'm glad to have you on my side. Now, if you'll come back down here tomorrow, I'm sure I'll be able to scare up some more information for you, particularly for the right price.
Very well. Oh, one more thing. Did you hear a ruckus last night? There seems to be
ruckus?
something about a woman.
Well, it's very strange. Was it up in the upper decks? There was some talk amongst people about a scream in the night, but mind you, old Hughes here, he's a deep sleeper.
I learned to sleep deeply as well. There's much to do in the day, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't investigate.
It's like, well, maybe if I have the right motivation, I can look into it for you. And he gives you another wink.
Arch an eyebrow and hand another $5.
Oh, mind you, now I did hear something. There was a lady on the upper decks taking in the night air. You know, it's good for the constitution to get out there and breathe in the cold air in the night and gets yourself a good sleep. Well, she was out there, and well, I don't put too much stock in hysteria, mind you. It's who knows what kind of things that a woman trying to get her sleep will imagine. But the word from the deckhands is that she saw some kind of strange fishman prowling the decks, looking for who knows what, likely to ravage her at any moment. But she passed out and screamed at the sight of him, and he fled. And she was found lying upon the deck by the hands that were nearby.
Was there any evidence of something on the deck? Any other sights?
Not that I heard, but that being said, who knows whether it was particularly properly investigated? It seems that the people who found her did not take her exclamations at face value. I mean, it's hard to say whether it was simply that time of the month. Mr. Hughes, not the most enlightened fellow.
Probably saw some strange motion picture. I've heard they've done experimental ones in the genre of horror.
Yes, the moving pictures. It definitely is something to excite the imagination. Apparently, this woman's imagination needed no excitement more than what was available to it at the time. Fishmen! Ridiculous!
Quite absurd. Well, we will reconvene in the morrow.
Indeed, I look forward to you returning down here, and I'm sure I'll be able to get up some information for you once that the day has passed. If not, at least the day after, I'll do my very best to pry the information from the hands of those two suspicious fellows or somebody close to them.
We better be back. We've already been away probably longer than we should have in with these strange happenings.
Excellent. Well, leave me to my own devices, and I will do my best to find out more.
Good day to you, sir.
And with that, we exit. Michael doing weird voice for Irish person very bad poorly. I hope that was not the worst.
Good enough. It's a distinct character.
Yeah.
I feel like from last week when you first met him to now, it kind of came together. I was kind of practicing it.
I have found doing a voice is one thing, and then improvising while doing a voice, that's where it like gets really challenging.
Well, so speaking of improvising, swapping scenes over to, I guess, Miss Baker. You were hanging out with Mr. Draper for the morning. Was there anything you were doing while hanging out with Mr. Draper, or are we going to scene shift to late morning, lunchtime-ish, where you all reconvene?
I don't know, just kind of hanging out and smoking and keeping an eye out to see if we could figure out who's in the last couple of rooms or if they were actually unoccupied. If I saw those same kids from before and they weren't with any adults, then I may try and... No, if I saw the younger girl on her own, I might try and like talk to her and see if I can get her to... keep her ears open for me. But her brother seemed more wary, so.
You don't run into the kids this morning. You do see some children, not those children, particularly on this level.
Okay.
I would probably just be. I was gonna say I would probably talk about what I rigged for our door the night before and suggest something similar from Miss Baker's room.
It's not a bad idea. I can have a look, but I am a fairly light sleeper, particularly with such an artifact under my care.
Well, it's not so much that, it's just any extra seconds that can give you to come to your senses.
That is a good point, and I certainly would welcome any demonstration you can give me on how to rig up such a thing. It may prove useful should we all survive this encounter and go back to our former trades.
Of course. I can set it up for you before we go to bed this evening.
Sounds good. Thank you. She'll light another cigarette and offer you one as we wait.
He will accept.
Man, 1930s. Everybody smoked! Actually, that's not true. Women, relatively speaking, did not smoke that much. It was kind of starting to become a thing that women smoked. And it was like starting to make the transition from like women started smoking in private and then started smoking in public, like in this kind of period. Like 1920s to 30s, like...
It was a plot point in Titanic.
Yeah, that's true. It was. Yeah. Like it's like that 1910, 1920, 1930 period went from like women didn't smoke, women smoked in private, to women smoked in public. So like in 1923, Nora is like kind of pushing social boundaries, not only by wearing pants but also by smoking.
Nora's
oh, sorry.
I said Nora's an edgelord.
She totally is. She just shoots people on sight. She doesn't conform to social norms. She's got a disfiguring scar on her face. I mean, what more could you?
Yeah. All right, so you guys meet back up. You're heading towards lunchtime after your meeting downstairs. How do you proceed? Keep in mind that, in theory, Watts is going to be post-lunch-ish making his way, presumably, to the upper deck to be able to track down... oh shit, I'm using the wrong name. Track down Mrs. Hastings to see what she's up to, and I don't know whether any of you would want to accompany him in doing so, which we'll have to do either in camera or in rollback in the following session.
Well, we definitely don't want anybody going alone. So we'll have to organize some kind of posse.
Yeah, Nora's not going to go talk to some high society ladies. That sounds like not fun.
I don't know. Maybe you'll like her. Look, she's a married woman out on her own, going across the seas, who is apparently also into the occult and basically flirting openly with random unmarried men.
That's true, honestly. I mean, if she was described to Nora at some point, perhaps she would be curious to meet her.
I feel like Brady would be the best, just because she seemed to like him.
Yeah, Brady was the one she was familiar with out the gate because Brady is a published author of the occult.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. I'm probably the best.
Well, we'll assume that happens in the afternoon, and we'll like smooth out any weird like timeline stuff once we round back into the following session. What are the guys otherwise doing? Presumably getting lunch at some point.
At the very least, I imagine when we make it back, we'd probably talk about our meeting a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, describe what you relate to each other, since the details of how you exactly do so might be important.
Well, it looks like at least two of the fellows that were following us have made it onto the ship. That scruffy, bearded fellow seems to have shaved. And the pale one, and the Mediterranean one, the snappy dresser, he came along as well.
Oh, it's good to know they're on board, though it would have been nice to leave them behind. At least one of them was in no shape to follow us. She sort of grins to herself.
Yes. We seem quite fortunate that their boss didn't tag along. We at least haven't garnered that much attention.
A dangerous person, I take it?
Very. She was behind the acquisition of, or at least attempted acquisition of the Hobhouse papers.
I see. Well, we shall have to learn more about this character when we return, I suppose.
I'll certainly be following up some leads when we get back.
Do let me know if you'd like a second set of eyes looking into such things. I am most curious about someone with that kind of connection.
Yeah. I usually work alone, but this investigation, it seemed to elude me a lot more than my usual. This crawling chaos they're very careful and very deeply embedded.
Perhaps a second set of eyes and a different approach. We'll sort of pat her waist where her gun is hidden. It can be handy at times.
True, and there is a limit to how much can be garnered from peaceful means, I'm sure. I do have no limits.
Indeed. And when these things occur, sometimes there is information to be gained by the information you can't get from the local authorities. We may be able to see the picture by filling in the white space, if you get my drift.
Yes. Your police connections may come in handy as well. They seem to be behind a great deal of disappearances.
Indeed, as I was saying, white space. Asking any direct questions tends to go poorly for the Inquisitors, but there are things to be learned by asking around the thing you are trying to learn and working backwards from what they won't tell you and what makes them most uncomfortable to discuss. I'm sure if we are careful and take our time, we can learn much. But if this figure is as powerful as she seems, and as has been described, we would probably be wrong to rush too headlong into inquiring about such people.
Quite. And these fellows that are on the boat, they are quite dangerous, even if they were unable to apprehend this object in the lower deck before we made it to the ship.
I'm sure they will be waiting for just the right moment. It would do little good for them to acquire the item while we are still in the middle of the sea, but as we approach our landing, perhaps we should take extra care.
That would be wise. The fellow we were conversing with, Mr. Hughes, he's quite resourceful, and he seems very experienced with these types of investigations. Even the low-level thugs, apparently they have some kind of initiation ritual. They require dark rites before they can even be admitted to that level. That's what I was referring to as far as they, aside from the obvious associations, they've already crossed some threshold, and they're definitely not worried about getting their hands dirty.
That is good to know. Perhaps it would be a good idea to touch base with Flinders once more and ensure that he is keeping an eye for such characters.
About Flinders, he seemed to be making his way around down there already.
Oh dear, is he talking to people?
Quite a lot. Lots about...
Number one rule I gave him was don't talk to people.
He's
Unfortunate that we
quite a
had to
following.
engage him.
Apparently, the mole people have evolved into, or have associations with giant sharks now. So
The mole people have evolved into sharks. I mean, you have to give the man credits for creativity, I suppose. But
honestly, I was surprised he would know of these ancient precursors to sharks. He at least paid attention to some of his courses at college.
apparently, but he is quite a strange man. I probably should not have involved him in this, but
He may yet come in handy if only to draw attention.
he certainly is good at that. It would make a worthwhile diversion, though I would hate if anything happened to the man at this point. He does seem so hopeless.
As if talking about him summons him to your side, a face pokes out around the corner as you're talking in the hall there. You are in the hall still, right?
I probably wouldn't have brought up the crawling chaos unless we were in one of the rooms.
Oh, okay. Well, then never. Yeah, if you had retired back to your bedroom, then no, he's not going to bust into your bedroom.
But probably
maybe when then I would say as you're exiting the bedroom, unless you have more things to discuss, there is a Flinders looking down the hall in your direction.
Oh dear.
He rushes forward and yells out, "Mr. Wright! Miss Baker! Good to see you!"
Oh, well. Hello, Mr. Flinders. How did you find us?
Well, I've been looking all over for you. I have fascinating information.
Keep your voice down and come inside.
Remember, the mole people are always listening.
Always listening is true. I will be very quiet. Now let's go inside. He barges his way into the room and says, I met the most fascinating individual at breakfast this morning.
Nora lights a cigarette and slowly pulls a small flask out of her pocket.
As
Please,
if
continue.
Why, he's a Turk. He is a short fellow, very muscly, very interesting, super interested into the occult. He has so many things he wants to hear about.
Nora immediately perks up and like raises an eyebrow at Mr. Wright.
Mr. Wright lights a cigarette at this point.
Well, he asks me so many things about my studies. Very interested in the mole people. He believes in the mole people. It's not often that you find people who believe in the mole people, but he knows. He knows the mole people.
Quite. I can't imagine why you have such difficulty with that.
Indeed. Anyway, he is very interested in our crossing of the ocean. He tells me that there are many things deep below the waves. I knew there were things deep below the waves, but he told me of incredible stories. Says Atlantis was not farther to the south, but farther to the north. Could you imagine that? Atlantis, below our very feet.
Nora sort of begins to tune out and is just like, Watts will probably want to hear some of this. Keeps listening.
Where is Watts, mind you? He would be most interested in these facts.
He likely would, but he is resting. I will convey this information to him. Do continue.
Resting? Well, anyway, he seemed very interested in this Atlantis. It seems to be his principal interest is the Atlanteans and their incredible history. He was telling me all about it. Well, I suppose I did most of the talking, but he was trying to tell me about it, and I was also very interested in hearing about it, and I was telling him about the mole people and the sharks. Could you imagine sharks 80 feet long, and they are very dangerous, and they are dinosaurs? Now, I had only heard about this in a magazine that I was reading just before leaving, and I'm very interested in seeing one of these sharks. I do so hope we see one on our voyage. Anyway, so getting back to the story.
Draper, this is Mr. Flinders. We met at university.
Mr. Draper, you're new. Ha! Well, are you interested in the occult as well?
Tangentially.
Tangentially, excellent. So you're very interested indeed. Well, anyway, let me get back to the
he
sharks.
continues, Miss Baker just like very casually offers the flask to everybody else.
So as he goes on for a little while about the sharks, he comes back around and says, anyway, so this fellow, he seemed convinced that I had some sort of item. He wanted me to show it to him. Now, I showed him everything I had. And apparently none of the items that I had were the item that he wanted to see. I'm not really sure what he was driving at, but I took him to my room. I mean, it's a very small room. I'm sitting in a bunk with 6 other people. There's almost no storage space. I can't imagine what he thought I had. He looked at all of my things, and I didn't have any of the things that he was interested in. He seemed mildly perturbed about the entire ordeal. And, well, at that point, he just shut me down. He walked away. Could you imagine? I was only halfway through telling him about the sharks, and he just left.
Oh, how rude of the man. That is most strange. Remind me never to ask you to hold on to anything. Ever.
Well, I'm very trustworthy. I still have all of the items that I brought with me. I mean, he didn't steal a one of them, I think. And he seemed very interested in them. So clearly it's going quite well.
Oh yes, you're doing exactly what we always expected and knew you were capable of.
And he looks very, very chuffed with himself, and he says, well, so if you have some kind of important mission for me, I am ready for my next assignment.
Okay. It sounds like you did a great deal of talking to this fellow. Did he have anything else to say besides about Atlantis?
Atlantis, well, yes, he did try to tell me more about it. And, well, yes, he had things to say about Atlantis. Something about a god or something. And honestly, I kind of came back to sharks. Well, so he did try to say some things, and it did seem important. But he was. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. I should have listened to the man.
I may have an idea of a further assignment for you, but I think for now surveillance is the best course. If you do happen to have a chance to engage this fellow again, try to listen more than you speak.
Listen! Oh, a novel idea indeed. I did do much listening when I spoke with him before. I suppose between the speaking, I did some listening. Anyway,
Yes.
if I see him again, I will do much listening.
Mouth shut, ears open. Very good.
Ears open, yes. Okay.
Also,
What about
remember that people with information about things like the mole people, they're either one of two kinds of people. Either they're people against the mole people, or people with the mole people. You know that all of us, we all fight the mole people.
Oh, that is a very good point, Very good point, Mr. Wright. You are always on point about the importance of being against the mole people, and I appreciate that. And we
But
will make sure we
remember-
stand undivided in against the mole people.
Unless you have established that they are actually enemies of the mole people and these sharks, unless you've established that, they could be working with them.
I feel like the sharks are neutral. I haven't spoken with them yet. I hope to do so soon. But we will see how that all plays out once the sharks are on the scene. But I will be sure to investigate our friends and see whether they are mole people. Because I don't think they are, but maybe they are. That's a good point.
That's an excellent use of your time. We will be in touch. As I said, I may have a new idea for something that you could help us on shortly, but we'll have to look into it.
Also, very important, remember, the mole people are always watching, and if we are to meet further, we should do so perhaps on the deck, anywhere besides our rooms here.
Excellent. I will wait for you on the steerage deck in the afternoon. If you seek to find me, that is where I will be. I will be on the steerage deck looking into things for you as you see fit. Anyway, I will be on my way, and I will be looking into this situation for you, and I'm sure I will uncover the most incredible findings that you have ever seen about the crazy things that are going to be happening upon this voyage.
No doubt.
Excellent.
Now I think it's just about for that appointment that we all have that we really must be getting to. So, Mr. Flinders, you will have to excuse us, and she will open the door. Just kind of look at him.
Flinders is about to say something. He looks at all of you, and then he nods and says, "Indeed. Okay, well, I must be off. I have important matters to attend to as well, and I will be in touch as soon as possible when I find out more about what is going on. And I'm sure there will be important insights to be had. And do keep an eye. Oh, I forgot to mention. Last night, there was some sort of disturbance. Apparently, there were sea mole people on the deck. They were accosting some woman.
Very good information. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We may have further questions about it, but you best get back to your surveillance before anything is missed.
Also, do be careful, especially on the deck after dark. If possible, keep in areas where there are at least one other person besides for witness.
A
never
good
know.
policy indeed, absolutely. I do believe that sea mole people value us for our eyes, and they will be taking our eyes if they can get a hold of them. So if I make sure that somebody else can see me, the sea mole people cannot steal my eyes. So I will make sure that there is somebody always within eyesight.
The world he lives in must be terrifying.
Well, it's been interesting as always, Flinders. Do take care of yourself.
All right, I will see you tomorrow, and I hope that you have further success in your investigations of what is going on. I was starting to slip into that Irish accent. I hope you have further success in this investigation that is undergoing. Whatever it is that you have to do here, I'm sure it's very important. You will be very successful, just like the last adventure.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, Mr. Flinders. She'll, like, feeling a little bad almost for him, like, hand him one of her packs of pre-rolled cigarettes. Like, do stay warm and be safe.
He looks at the cigarettes for a moment and says, Miss Baker, it's very nice of you to give these to me, but I have realized that cigarettes is playing into the mole people's hands. I have eschewed cigarettes entirely, and I only smoke shisha tobacco.
Cigarettes come from the mole people. Well, I appreciate you letting me know. I apologize if I've offended you.
Tailor-mades are meant to prevent us developing our dexterity and being able to properly handle cigarettes, and I have decided that hookahs are the proper way for the consumption of tobacco. Unfortunately, there are none of them.
That is quite unfortunate. Pull out like a tobacco pouch from the bottom of her bag. Just be like, if you have any use for this, you can use that instead. Practice that dexterity of yours.
Excellent. He'll take the tobacco pouch and he'll head back out the door.
As soon as he
Uh,
is out
Wait
of
for him to
earshot,
get like a couple feet and then just close the door and sigh.
as soon as he's out of earshot, I'll say, he is going to get us or himself killed.
Right puts his head into both of his hands.
He is surprisingly good at surviving for what you expect of him. But yes, I may not have fully considered the ramifications of inviting Mr. Flinders on this particular adventure. That said, I do have an idea for him. If we are trying to perhaps discover those who may be interested in this item prior to actually having to defend it from their potential theft, it may be a good idea to set a sort of trap with them. Mr. Flinders, as his outgoing, forthcoming self, I mean, should he suddenly acquire what he believes to be a chest containing an item of great occult value, I am certain those who are interested in such things will know about it quite quickly, and we may be able to set something up to lie in wait and discover who our enemies are before they strike.
Could I make some sort of booby trap for these chests?
Like ink or something?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. What would you roll for, like...
I mean, I feel like locksmith is in.
Yeah, it's tangentially related.
Yeah.
Sure. I feel like you could make an ad hoc locksmithing roll to jury rig some kind of you'll have to tell me what items you're using, and then and just so that I can, because if you're like oh, I'm gonna get a bear trap, well, there's no bear trap.
I think
So,
ink is a good
Nora
idea.
does have a silver fountain pen specifically in her possessions. So we do have like some quantity of ink.
Yeah, some kind of. See, the thing is, I'm trying to think of how we could make it so it like sprays the.
There's also
Nora does
that
have a gun
deadly-
and lots
deadly
of ammo.
There's also that gas.
Oh, the liquid that we know it does? It's a great idea. I like it. I mean, Nora would like it.
Yeah, I don't know if Brady or Wright or Sir Watts have mentioned the mystery liquid.
That's true.
Yeah, and it would be in his. It would be in his. What you call it?
Could we? Oh, what is like exposure time like with cameras at this point? It's pretty slow, right?
Yes, people, and that's why people didn't smile. I think for the most part in old pictures was because you had to stand there for a while. So it's like holding a smile for like a few minutes is a big pain in the ass.
Okay, so that idea of rigging up the camera does not really work. But would there be like a flash thing? Does that exist yet? Would you have a flash?
Yes, there is flash, but it's not like it's an automatic flash. It's a chemical thing of like niter and stuff that you actually put like a piece of like a fire onto that causes it to like burst.
Gotcha. Okay. Also not helpful.
Like there is potentially a way to do this, but like being able to obtain all of those specific chemicals in the right quantities and hook them up is probably something that if you've not planned for it before you left, is probably not available unless you were like a person who does photography.
Yes. Fair. I mean, I do have a camera and accoutrements, which is why I'm asking.
Well then, I don't know. Yeah, hypothetically, I'd say you'd have to suffer flash photography.
Okay, so we could potentially try and blind them when they open the chest, is my thought. Also, just saying this because I keep forgetting to mention it, as I have been getting people to bring me food, I have been feeding my cat. Cat is healthy.
Oh, good now. Okay, good.
Very important.
I have not forgotten about Marmalade. Marmalade is being well taken care of.
So,
If that, matters.
what was with the blinding trap? I was trying to look.
Basically, you'd use the chemicals for flash photography with flash powder that, when ignited, creates an explosion that creates a quick flash. Yes, this was invented in 1899. It wasn't until 1930 that proper flash bulbs were invented. It was considered very unsafe and very inconsistent, basically, because it was just essentially just like a bunch of explosive materials that you had to ignite at the exact right time while you were taking a photo. But like hypothetically, if you were set up to do flash photography and you were like a photographer and you had the stuff, you would essentially have like a small thing of like various like chemicals and shit that is used for producing this kind of explosion.
The idea would be that you would rig some kind of trap that would make a spark, basically.
Exactly. Like you're talking about essentially something that would be like, and then like create a spark that would then go onto some kind of exposed powder. Notably, the powder is very hydroscopic, so the powder would very rapidly absorb liquid. You would have to probably change it like 2 to 3 times a day for it to still remain able to ignite. I know this because I spent years being an 1812 British soldier. So like essentially like yes, exposed powder like black powder, it sucks up liquid from the air and very quickly becomes unusable. Essentially, like battles of that era were unfightable in high humidity weather.
Okay, that may not be the most practical thing either then.
Yeah, at sea, gonna be a problem.
It's very cold, so it would be dryish.
This is true. Okay, I will give it to you that. That likely the humidity levels would not be crazy. You might be okay for a day or so of like exposed powder.
I don't know. I'm kind of coming back around to Mystery Flask, but that seems kind of cruel.
Also, there
I
is
don't know. Could we just like, could we find a bell somewhere that we could steal? That we could like have it just ring a bell when they try and open it to like call us from the next room or something?
I like the blinding thing. I'm just
So did Draper whenever he was thinking about making a trap, did he express that to everybody? Or was that just like an internal thing?
well, I guess he would be thinking about it for a minute, and because Nora mentioned rigging a trap, he was thinking about how he could do that, and then would be like, well, I might be able to rig the locking mechanism of our cases to do something, but we're a little limited on supplies here.
Because
Would they have stopped me from bringing my shotgun?
I don't know how good border control was at embarking versus disembarking. I would guess if you were tricksy about it, probably not. But if you were just like carrying it, you would not have gone on board.
I don't know, I mean, she would have like packed it in her bags and just been like kind of cash about it, I guess. Or trunk. Would it fit in a trunk? I don't know.
If we're just trying to make noise, we could just remove the round from ammunition for our firearms and then just have it fire
Okay.
nothing. It'd be noisy.
That would require putting a gun in the case.
Or simply having something strike the cap.
It does seem as though perhaps we do not want to attract too much attention, though. I'm kind of coming back around to the idea of finding a way of blinding or temporarily disabling the person so we have a moment to apprehend them before anybody else is made aware. I do have rather copious amounts of liquor that I have brought for Mr. Watt's sake, but we could certainly put some of that aside if there was a way of using it to distract or temporarily blind them. I don't really want to set them on fire, but I'm at a loss for other options at the moment.
Does anyone else have a headache? As he pops an aspirin, offers it.
yeah, I guess I was just like earlier when I had asked Jeff about it, I was just trying to make sense of like if it was a thing that was brought up for the group because he would have mentioned the liquid in the flask. So I guess you mentioned alcohol, but there's this type of solvent, this material that it seems really abrasive. It could be maybe possibly used for this trap of sorts. I don't know if it could blind a person, but it did give me and Watts a headache last night.
Did you bring this with you? Is it something from your research? What kind of solvent are you talking about?
So there's this item right now that Watts has, and it's been giving him some pretty substantial dreams, and he came away from a dream with a beaker of this material in it, and he had laid it on the table overnight, and we woke up to having a decent headache.
I'm sorry, say that again. He dreamed something and then it came true?
So, yeah, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, and I don't know where he would have gotten it if it just, yeah, I really don't know where he would have gotten it, and that's at this point all I can make sense of it from what he said was he had a dream and he woke up and it was in his hands.
Then we're sure he's not sleepwalking or something of that nature.
I don't think so. We woke up to the noise of the woman last night, and he was still in bed. The door had been locked on the room, so I can't honestly say he wasn't, but I know that he'd been expressing a great deal of kind of an out of body experience with the dreams he had been having lately, and I think it's in part to the object he has on his person.
Is most strange. What kind of object are we talking about?
This is the egg object, right, Mike?
That's right. Yes, it is a strange jeweled, like a jewel-looking egg. It is a egg-shaped object that seems to have a sort of moving, melting sort of color within it that looks a little bit like a skull.
And I'll just translate that to the group. Yeah, he had purchased it, and he'd been sleeping with it ever since. And last night he had me try to sleep with it and see if I had the same experience, and I didn't.
Well, you hadn't told me where you had acquired it from. Uh, well, if it comes up, you told the group, not me. If we're
I
all
get-
confessing things at the moment, did you have any strange dreams with in the accompaniment of the object last night?
I think we established I did not, correct?
We established that you had a restless sleep but don't remember any dreams. Which, I mean, essentially is that like you remember having disturbed sleep. What exactly happened during that disturbed sleep is a mystery.
Well, I don't recall exactly. I did not sleep well, but nothing stands out in particular detail.
I'm not sure why, but this object seems to have uh, responded to me in some degree. I'd prefer to stay away from it as much as possible. I've had 2 instances now in as many days where time seemed to come to a still, but I was still moving. And the first time, well, I lit a cigarette in both times, but the first time it seemed as if nothing had happened when it ended, and the second time the cigarette was still in my hand. So I don't know if this thing is becoming more strongly linked or if it's interacting with one of the objects nearby, but I would be careful.
That is very interesting. I find it most curious that we all, the good number of us, seem to have encountered objects that directly affect our sleep in some manner. I know I've shared some details about this lamp that I found of my mother's, but it also seems to be related to sleep. The letter I received with it specifically warns against lighting it and some troubled sleep and creatures hunting them by the sounds of it. I don't know what exactly lies beyond the realm of consciousness, but this is most curious. We should probably keep these objects separated to the degree that we are able.
It's very unsettling that objects have been starting to come back, or uh, I don't know. This feels different than last time. If
Perhaps we are simply more sensitive to it, but I did go digging for these items. Given our recent experiences, it seemed time to delve into old mysteries, but perhaps they are more connected than we realized. And
also,
Mr. Flanders' story of gigantic sharks is lending some small, very small, credence to Mr. Watt's fears of the open waters.
we should probably abstain from mentioning that, at least in his presence.
That particular part, yes, I think can go unreally unmentioned when we speak to Mr. Watts, but anything further we can learn of this Atlantis place, I mean, that sounds right up his alley.
Well, our dinner last night wasn't entirely just social. There were two two ladies and along with the purser in the captain's accompaniment, and uh, at least one of them, a Mrs. Hastings, seemed quite interested in the occult, and she had in her possession a Book of the Deep Ones, as translated by Mr. Watts. She's quite the character. You two would have got along, I imagine.
Huh. I would have expected the captain's table to have less interesting accompaniment, but that is good to know. I wonder if she's familiar with my aunt. She certainly has her fingers in all sorts of strange circles.
At the very least, I worry for their health now that we've established at least two of the uh, crawling chaos have made their way on this boat. I'm sure they're interested in more than just what we're carrying. If they come to find of this book in their possession, I'm sure they would move on it as well.
I would go ahead.
Sorry. That's a good point. We should perhaps try to find out where exactly it is being kept and ensure that the purser is correct about his security arrangements.
I can't help but kind of sit back and watch this all happen and feel a little weird about Mrs. Hastings and her presence here on the ship. It feels a little coincidental. I'll just say that. Um, she's very personable, knows a lot, and it may just be happenstance.
That is a good point. I mean, if there's anyone who could run an occult syndicate without being caught, it would be a woman with the means behind her and the persona and personality to not be suspected. Someone who is openly into the occult would not garner suspicion with any rogue inquiries. It's something we may well want to keep in mind and certainly supervise Mr. Watts if he has been intrigued by her overtures.
I believe he intends to meet with her later this afternoon, if you'd like to accompany him. I was gonna go with him, but she seemed to get better, or she seemed taken with Benjamin. So I thought he'd be a better suit.
Perhaps it would be better for her to engage with those she feels less guarded around, and I will attempt to make her acquaintance at some point separately, see how she takes to me. I don't want to be the third wheel in such circumstances. No offense to Mr. Brady, but I feel your expertise and advanced years perhaps aid you in blending in these situations. People are less likely to be threatened by your presence.
Yeah, no offense taken. I couldn't help but feel the same way in regards to being a third wheel, though, with the obvious connection that Mr. Watts and Miss Hastings have.
Perhaps it is best that we both accompany him, and once we have established that she seems to be social and not threatening, we can leave them to their own devices. It will be less awkward for either of us at that point.
I
We're
agree.
certainly past the point of traveling anywhere alone.
That is also a good point. I hope I can trust the two of you to take care of the chests, whichever one is
Is Mr. Draper there?
particularly valuable. I thought so.
We said two of you.
Well, Watts isn't there.
So wouldn't that be three?
Brady and I are going to talk to.
Oh, sorry. You mean? Oh.
Yes. Right, and Draper can watch the chests while we are off. And then perhaps when we leave them to socialize, we can track down some of these young ruffians aboard the ship and engage their services. They do seem to be able to get along unnoticed, and perhaps some of the steerage children would be more willing to make a few cents keeping their ears open.
Quick paranoia-induced question. Was either Miss Hastings or Miss Green tall, pale, and with dark hair?
No. If I recall correctly, let me roll back, just in case I get this wrong.
But the face that people know is not her true face.
No.
I thought I had a description here. No, there were no pictures that I had actually put in. There is a character sheet that is hidden from you. Mrs. Hastings is tall and thin and pale, but does not have dark hair. Miss Green is relatively short and mousy.
But surely wigs exist.
But surely wigs exist. This is true.
Okay. I just got to keep that little spark of paranoia alive in everyone's heads, just in case.
She wasn't the pale lady, but she is now.
I'm just going through all my Hastings notes.
Well, I suppose we should wait for Mr. Watts to finish his rest and accompany him. Is there anything else relevant that should be relayed at this point?
I think Draper at this point is already tinkering with something to try to rig a trap.
Well, say give me a locksmith roll. I feel like that is appropriate. It is a tangentially related skill set.
I was thinking probably honestly the simplest thing would probably be to like set up a lighter to generate a spark to ignite something when the crate's open.
Yeah, like I said, basically you could do that considering, as Emily pointed out, that it is cold. It is not particularly high humidity at the moment, but you are at sea. There is a relative amount of humidity, so you would have to replace that on probably more or less a daily or every other day basis. But it is possible to do so. You could potentially get more clever about how you go about doing that. And obviously having some bullets and shells and stuff like that. Like you obviously have black powder in those as well. But like there is a general problem that black powder is extremely hydroscopic and will become inflammable when once it is too wet.
The other thing I was thinking was probably way more complicated. Some spring-loaded thing to shoot a jar of ink onto them.
Let's say you'll do it, and if you get a hard success, you'll figure out some kind of crazy ink rigging. If you get a regular success, you will get some kind of like black powder thing that is requires being re-upped every day or two. All right, black powder it is. So, like, essentially, if you don't re-up it every single day, I will say that there's going to be a chance of failure if it is open on the second day, and depends on how much liquid is, or how much high humidity it has been exposed to.
All right. Imagine
It
that'll
was a
take
real
me
problem.
a few
It would go.
hours.
Oh, sorry.
I said, I imagine that would take me a few hours to test.
Yeah, I guess basically either you go for lunch or go for a late lunch and come and after doing it, or go for lunch and come back and do it early in the afternoon.
probably start like as we're talking, and then once people we're like going to lunch, he'll stop and then go to lunch and then come back and finish.
Alrighty. All right. Well, with that, let's take a little break before we wrap up the evening. Well, we're back. We've just finished up lunchtime discussions and a brief meeting with our friend Flinders, who gets crazier by the day, I feel. I don't know. I like Anthony up Flinders. And we're deciding what we're going to do with our afternoon. Mr. Draper is going to be involved for a little bit with the jury rigging of one or more of the canisters. That's not the right word. Chests in the bedrooms. What are y'all doing?
So for clarification, my original suggestion had been that we rig one of the chests and then get Flinders to take care of it, because he will get word out and like lure people in to try and rob him, potentially. But I don't know what everybody else thought of that idea.
That could be useful, but I would definitely wait until an attempt on the purser has been made.
Yeah, we already have one misdirection in place, so that might be the thing to do. Do we know that this book that What's-Her-Face is traveling with is with the purser, or has she just mentioned that it exists?
She mentioned that it exists, and if anything, has indicated that she is studying it regularly, and therefore likely it is in her possession.
Then some follow-up on how secure that is might be in order.
Yeah.
And we already apparently have fish people on the upper deck.
Yes, indeed.
Maybe she's already unlocking something with it.
I guess if Brady and I are going to see about Watts, maybe one of Draper or Wright can watch the stuff and the other one can poke around and have a look-see at what this lady's security is like while she's not in her room.
Right. Oh, that definitely sounds more like a Draper thing.
Draper's working on the traps.
This is true.
Yeah, there's some time in the afternoon to do different things, obviously.
I would definitely say Wright would use literally any excuse to get the hell away from this thing that keeps giving him visions or whatever, like frozen time.
That's fair. Well, I guess Draper is watching the boxes, at least for now, while he's setting this up. Should we say that after Brady and Baker escort Watts, they can divert towards the lady's room if we have some vague idea where that may be? Because we know that she is occupied.
You do not know where the lady's room is. You do not inquire as to it, and you do not see her going to access her room when Draper and Baker were hanging out in the hall.
That might be information that Watts could get.
Yeah, to say that maybe should wait then, and we'll sort of assume that either Watts or one of us can get this information in a vague, casual sense from her when we go talk to her, and then we will go investigate her room, or at least the security of such.
One more thing we can do before afternoon, we could poke at this fishman sighting.
Yeah, that's obviously, you can certainly question some of the crew and other people involved in the situation, try and track them down as to what exactly happened, or the woman herself.
Draper would have, at the mention of the lady, told what he overheard in the captain's area.
That seems like something that Mr. Wright would be good at going and poking into with his journalistic experience. Asking questions to get information without people realizing what you're trying to find out about and stuff.
I could hang around the upper decks and then try at first listening to and see if I can pick out people talking about this sighting, and then I could approach some people and then try and get them to brag about their accommodations to maybe get more information that way. Say, talk about how prestigious they look and how their quarters must just be so grand, that kind of thing.
To like just general people that would be in the similar quarters.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, there can't be too many first class quarters, so I could try and poke at it that way.
Yeah, they're not a huge number. I mean, I would say that the easy sort of way would be to simply question around about saying that you're looking for Mrs. Hastings' cabin to speak with her or something along those lines. I mean, in terms of the simplest sort of method of doing that. I mean, you're all in first class quarters. Whether she's in a particularly different first class quarters than you wouldn't particularly know, but like you're talking about two levels of the ship that have, relatively speaking, a handful of quarters.
Oh, so we're on the same deck?
There's two decks.
Okay. So she would have had like the fancier quarters, like Baker did.
So yeah, essentially that like there is like one level of quarters to your knowledge. There may be some very slightly fancier rooms, which is I've actually included here in terms of pictures, but it hasn't particularly come up in terms of discussion. But like by and large, you are in like there's like two classes. There's like the good class and the not good class, and you guys are on the good class deck.
Okay.
But that there may be a couple of particularly alternatively fitted rooms for slightly more luxurious travel. But the simple answer, as I said, would be essentially like asking around after where you would find this person.
Even more indirect, I could find someone and strike up a conversation, talk about how they look well dressed and how I'm surprised they're not in Miss Hastings' accommodations or something like that. Play that off like I'm not interested in her quarters, and then maybe try and nudge them into talking and about specifically her quarters.
Okay, I would say loosely, sure. You could basically make like a charm or a persuasion or a fast talk, and we'll call that like, essentially we'll do the roll and decide, because yes, like I would agree that as the kind of person that you are, that you would be able to figure this out. Well, there you go. So like, basically making your way around in the early afternoon on the promenade of the deck, chatting with various people who are also first class passengers. You strike up various conversations, talking to people about their accommodations, about the different people who are traveling and who you've met. And basically, you are slowly but surely able to wheedle out of a few different people who you've run into that Mrs. Hastings is accompanied is placed on the upper deck above you, in the far corner to the port side, towards the bow of the boat. And that based on the layout of the boat, it looks like she must have a rather spacious room, since it seems to take up more than the usual space given the layout of the boat.
Perfect. I just didn't want to be like, hey guys, you know where Miss Hastings is at? And then later there's like, oh, there was an attempted break-in at Hastings. Very,
Yeah,
very
that's
conspicuous.
fair. Sure, you're a journalist. You should be able to like kind of finagle these kinds of things.
Yeah, perfect. The other thing is between conversations, I want to be listening to people talking and see if we can squeeze out any more details about this alleged sighting last night.
Who is it that are you talking to? Other first class passengers, to crew?
Between both, between talking to passengers and then anytime there's crew about, see if I hear some gossip.
One second. Just making a note. So I will say that you end up first directed towards a crewman who was on deck that night. That you managed to find yourself talking to a fellow who says like, oh yes, I did find the woman on that front deck.
Uh, did she seem uh did she seem like the type of person to make up stories? Eccentric?
Eccentric. Well, the story is pretty eccentric in and of itself. A fish person. It seems ludicrous.
Of course, it was obviously a trick of the light, or lack thereof. But did she seem normal otherwise?
Seemed like a perfectly upstanding woman. I could only imagine it was nerves, likely her first trip overseas, and an overactive imagination led her astray.
Out of curiosity, what exactly did she describe as this fish person? Is it like a fish head? Like, yeah, I'm having trouble even picturing such a thing.
Let me think. Well, I didn't pay too much attention to the exact details. She seemed to say that there was a crewman, it looked like, somebody wearing some kind of clothes that she thought seemed to be official. I don't know exactly. She didn't go into details. And she was walking down the side of the boat, and that she came closer to this crewman, and the crewman turned around, and she said that the face was horribly disfigured, terrible drooping mouth, bulbous eyes, scaly skin as if it were a fish, uh, almost a hulking form. She described that something that was broad-shouldered and otherwise a large form. But it does seem to be a ridiculous description.
That is quite amusing, although uh, less amusing uh, for her, I imagine.
No, absolutely not. She passed straight out. I mean, that may have been that she simply was feeling queasy from her first voyage upon a ocean-going vessel, and that the lack of that she had gone out for some fresh air, and unfortunately was already feeling faint, and simply imagined the whole affair.
Hmm. There haven't been any other events like that on this ship before, have there?
No, certainly not. We've had many safe passages to and from England, and never before have we had such crazy experiences described by somebody aboard the ship.
Which, if you don't mind my asking, which lady was this?
Hold on a moment. Let me think. It was. Oh, I believe a Mrs. Clifford, something like that. I believe she's staying on the starboard side in the second room from the stern.
Is that
Well,
our
that's-
side or the other side?
You guys are on the port side.
Okay, other side is that. Okay.
Let me just double check that in case I'm totally wrong, and I've got my port and starboard mixed up. I did not. Port is the left side of the ship. Starboard is the right side of the ship. You guys are on the left side of the ship.
Oh, thanks. You've been very. It's hopefully the rest of the trip's less eventful. We'll find
It
some.
certainly should be. This is probably one of the stranger things I've ever heard described upon a ship. Usually a simple standard seasickness, but we do have the odd person that simply cannot stand being at sea.
Carry on. I'll be on my way.
Nods to you.
One more thing of note. We do have the description of these individuals, and it has slightly changed. So it might be worth meeting with the purser to update our descriptions.
Sure. You will have to go on a bit of a search of the ship. The purser is making various rounds, checking in. The purser's responsibilities do not include only the securing of valuables upon the ship, but also checking in on the various important people who are traveling upon the ship and the general state of the crew. Not that you can't find it. It's not a gigantic ship, but you're going to have to do a little bit of hunting around in the afternoon to find it.
Okay.
But I would say, in 45 minutes to an hour of taking a look around, you will track him down, asking crew where he should be. You will find him in the food stores for the mess hall on the lower level.
Sorry to bother you, Mr. Barnes. But I believe I encountered saw those two gentlemen we encountered earlier, and the one that had the beard seems to have shaved it off.
Likely. I suppose you would want to ensure that you don't look exactly the same if you've been spotted before.
Of course, I don't know what kind of recourse you have. Obviously, you can't just go around arresting people based on other patrons' assertions. But is there anything you can do to, I don't know, keep an extra eye, or at least pass on the description of the crew as people of import or note?
Give me a persuasion roll.
It would
You're definitely not being charming.
Damn.
I mean, this is not a sink or swim. He nods and says, "Mr. Wright, we have every precaution taken. If anybody should act untoward towards the valuables or persons upon this vessel, we'll take all such actions required to secure the life and livelihood of all aboard. You have my word that we do take. I do take my responsibilities very seriously, and should there be anything that happens, then I will take every step possible. I mean, do remember we are at sea, many miles from land. Should anything be stolen, it should be a simple matter to track it down.
Of course, but likely any action would be closer to shore. But the earlier you know the individuals and follow their actions, the easier counteracting something like that would be. You are,
Yeah,
after all, a professional.
he sighs and pulls out his notebook and says, "One more time, what was that description again?"
And I give the updated description with the shaved beard.
He says, "Okay, thank you very much. I have taken note of this. I will make sure that the security staff on board, the people that are involved in managing the cargo hold, know who to look for. I very much doubt that there will be any issues with the secure storage on board. Your valuables are very much safe at hand. But should anything happen, you will be the first to know."
Of course, I never had a doubt that anything would uh, happen to our valuables, but you understand these people will likely attempt something, and I wouldn't want uh, any you or any of the crew to be hurt if additional information could avoid that.
Indeed, yes, I do appreciate your concern very much. But I think that you certainly should appreciate as well that we are professionals who have made many voyages, east to west to east, across the Atlantic. And I would trust that this will be no different than any other.
Well, thank you for hearing my concerns. I'll leave you to your work.
He goes back to counting potatoes. All right, we're coming up close to 11 o'clock. Let's talk about what we're going to do with the rest of the afternoon. Mr. Wright likely spent much of his afternoon tracking down this information. Mrs. Baker, Miss Baker, I suppose Miss Baker and Mr. Brady were both going to be on Watt's accompaniment, right?
Yes, we were going to do that first. And then I guess, depending on whether or not we had spoken to Mr. Wright again after his inquiries, we would be trying to get her room location or just planning to swing over there and take a look once we were done checking out the situation, making sure that this person seemed to be on the level and not, trying to do anything to Mr. Watts.
This is hard to say without. Honestly, it's a very hard call to make without having cleared out the entire Mr. Watts situation.
Yeah, I think we just leave that and we circle back around and do the Mr. Watts thing and see how that goes as to whether or not we meet back up and whether or not we get her room location and whatever.
Well, so you've got the room location, but like in terms of
have we
timing
talked
and
to
where
Mr.
she'll be
Wright
there,
yet?
like essentially, like if Mr. Watts meets with her.
Well, that was the idea, is that we would leave Mr. Watts with her to keep her distracted without necessarily telling him.
Okay.
Yes, we have to play.
I would
that
say
safe.
that's fair. Okay, let's say that that whatever happens, I would say that there's really no reason to believe that you would not be able to succeed at doing that. That essentially that you would quietly excuse yourself once she was engaged with Mr. Watts, whatever it is that they decide to do, and you could head over to the second deck to take a look. How do you proceed then in terms of trying to check out her rooms?
To begin with, just sort of head over and, kind of hang out nonchalantly nearby and see if they're, we recognize any of the people in nearby rooms. And, is her, maid person hanging around at the rooms keeping an eye out, or is she hanging around, keeping an eye on this person that she has obviously been hired to keep an eye on?
Well, by and large, people don't generally just hang out in the halls. The halls are mostly people going from one place to the other. They might stop to have a chat or something like that. But like, there's really like, if you want to stake out the hall, you'd probably be staying in like the main sort of foyer area, looking down the halls and keeping yourself busy, like smoking and chatting. So there would be plenty of opportunity of like the hall being at least briefly empty. Although when somebody is going to exit or show up and enter a particular room is anybody's guess.
Okay, so I think to begin with, then Nora would just kind of find a comfortable place to sit and like, just kind of chat and smoke and try and play it casual and to keep an eye out on like where her room was and see if there's anyone snooping around or looking, suspiciously for a way into her chambers or anything. Just sort of keep an eye out to see if there's anyone paying particular attention to her.
So I will say at around like 2 to 3 p.m., somewhere in that range, the room next to hers opens and Miss Green exits with a bundle of items that she is carrying.
What kind of stuff does it look like?
Various miscellaneous stuff, some laundry and other like personal items. Whether she's on her way to see to cleaning or bring it to some stuff to Mrs. Hastings or something like that. Basically, she seems to be executing her duties as a assistant slash lady's maid for Mrs. Hastings.
Is she behaving in any way furtively?
I guess give me a psychology roll.
I like doing these ones.
Moderately so, but that is in line with her particular demeanor. She's the type of person that if she is being furtive and suspicious, she is always furtive and suspicious. So I would say with a hard success, you remain relatively suspicious of her, but maybe come more towards the side of like this is simply her demeanor.
Okay. Would there be any like connecting door? Like, could she have gone into Miss Hastings' room without being seen from the hallway?
You do not know.
Okay. But turn towards Mr. Brady. She seems to be acting suspicious, but that may just be her way. Do you think I should follow her for a moment?
I don't think there's anything. I don't see a reason why you shouldn't. I can stand here and wait for you to come back, and that would be my alibi. If anyone were to see me, if you feel like you should, then I would go with that instinct.
Very well. Perhaps have a seat and pretend to be resting. Shouldn't be likely anyone will question you, but I will try to return shortly. Don't rush off and get yourself into any trouble.
You the same.
Well, that's my job, is it not? I shall return.
Draper here by this point? Because it's been a little bit, so Draper could have showed up.
I feel like we would have asked somebody to, stay with the stuff.
Yeah, I think Draper's just gonna stay with the cases.
All right. So Baker, you make your way down the hall, and it is currently empty. What you do?
Yeah, well, I don't know, just sort of try and casually follow Miss Green and just sort of see what she's up to, make sure it doesn't look like she is, I don't know, consorting with anyone suspicious or anything like that.
Give me a stealth roll.
She doesn't know who I am, though.
You follow her down towards as she descends below decks, and she heads down into the steerage class where the rooms are for or where the various where the various what do you call it? Laundry and food and so on is prepared. She seems to be heading for the laundry room. Once you get down and start heading down that, she seems to turn around and look back at you and give you a glare because she's like, what is this person doing down here? Since you followed her all the way from the upper decks as an upper deck person down into steerage for no apparent reason.
I will, I guess, seeing that she's caught a glimpse of me and seems to be aware that I'm following her, sort of pretend to be catching my breath a bit. I'm sorry, miss. Did you drop this? And just like grab an unopened pack of cigarettes, like pretend to pull them out to her.
Give me a deception. What's is there? I don't know if there's a deception roll. I don't know, like fast talk or persuasion or something like that.
Oh, that's so close. No, wait, I'm gonna use luck on that. I got lots of luck.
All right. You use 5 luck.
Yeah.
All right. With spending 5 luck, she looks at it and seems to sigh, and her shoulders droop, and says, "No, ma'am, I'm very sorry. Those aren't my cigarettes. But it's been a stressful day. If you'll give me one, I'd much appreciate it."
Oh, well, someone dropped this pack, but I can give you one of mine, certainly. And I'll pull out my opened package and hand her one. Are you all right there, miss? Is there anything I can do to help?
She puts it behind her ear and says, "No, I'm just your average lady in waiting, and I've got much to do to keep my mistress happy."
Yes, those well-born mistresses can be challenging at times. My cousin is, well, quite a character.
Indeed. Well, it certainly is something to keep up with. But I do look up to ladies such as yourself, trouncing about in pants. It seems like quite the life, but not something I'm ever going to experience. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must get back to my laundry.
Oh, by all means, I don't wish to hold you up, but hopefully your lady at least treats you well and you are respected in your position. Do take some time for yourself and enjoy that later.
She bows briefly and scurries away quickly around the corner into the laundry room. Since you are still somebody who is from the upper class decks, she is not fully trustful of your honest intentions.
That's fair. She seems truthful, at least.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a psychology roll, I suppose. Yes, she seemed legitimately put off by the fact that you were following her, and vaguely relieved that it seemed like you were just simply thinking that she had dropped something.
Cool. All right. Well, I will head back to Mr. Brady post haste. Make sure that everybody is still okay. And yeah, I don't know how far it would be, but yeah, I would just get back as quick as possible.
Not long, so a few minutes to get back up to the other deck, and you return to a hall with Mr. Brady still sitting in the main lounge area by the stairs, and a quiet hall with only the odd person moving back and forth.
She seems trustworthy enough going about her business. Have you seen anything untoward up here?
Would I have seen anything?
No, basically, like there's in the afternoon, people are generally either staying retired to their room or are off doing something out on the deck or in one of the public rooms. There isn't a heck of a lot of traffic happening at this point in the day.
Nothing out of the ordinary. Just casual people doing casual things.
Well, I can't believe I'm saying it, but perhaps we should actually try and enjoy this voyage somewhat. It seems our enemies, competitors, are laying low for the time being. Perhaps we should enjoy the fresh air and stay close to the lady's window, just in case.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I guess we just have to keep our eyes on and ears open to cues that maybe things are gonna start picking up, but until then, maybe we should, just kind of enjoy what we can.
Oh, so for reference, her rooms do not look out upon a deck; they look out straight onto the water. The upper level has no exterior walkway.
Okay, then that
There are
is
larger rooms that extend farther over the walkway that's below them.
same like porthole sort of windows that.
Actually, square windows?
So like actual proper windows.
Yeah, well, look.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we wouldn't be able to really see from below if her window was open or not.
No, you could try and lean out significantly, but it would be difficult to see.
Yeah. Where is her room in relation to all of ours? Like, I know she's above us, but like.
The opposite side and above you and farther towards the front.
Does that line up with any of the rooms that we have not seen people come and go from?
You haven't seen people for the most part. I mean, you may have seen a few people come and go. I suppose I can update the map for the upper level while you've been hanging out.
Sorry, no, I mean below. Like on our level.
No.
Are there
Below
empty
is the
rooms?
opposite side. So the only person you've seen on the opposite side in terms of that map that I showed would be the one person who was sick that morning.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have no idea really.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just like we break into the room below her and stake it out, but yeah, never mind. Yeah, I don't know. I'm out of ideas at this point. It doesn't seem like anyone is particularly taking interest in her book yet. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's 11 o'clock. I think we're going to call it here because we have a pretty key thing in terms of what Watts does about his meeting with Mrs. Hastings. And we will regroup in, 2 weeks since we've got multiple people off after the long weekend.